Welcome to the Sex After Kids podcast, a place for parents to come and learn together about the sometimes bumpy road back into the saddle of their sex life after adoption, birth, or joining a blended family. I'm your host, Sofia Ashley, certified sex educator and sex coach, mother and stepmother, and your totally TMI guide to becoming BFFs with your body and initiating easy and connected and confident, naked, sexy fun times. Here we are, one part science of sex, one part mindfulness magic, and one part straight up real talk to help you find the spark in yourself and your relationship after kids. I'm so glad you're here. Hey friends, welcome back to the Sex After Kids podcast. Today, I want to talk about the 4 secret ingredients to a fantastic sex life after kids. Hint, hint, they are likely not what you think they are. That's all I'm going to say to get us started today. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Okay, so I want to set the stage first by taking you to a show called Easy on Netflix. Maybe you've seen it. Episode 1 takes us right into a husband and wife with a few kiddos that are trying to spice up their love life. I want to note here this episode can be a bit of a gut punch if you relate, and I will be spoiling a little bit here. So throughout the episode, we see this couple try to role play, they try new positions, they go to the sex shop. All of it is extremely awkward and gets them nowhere. In the end of the episode, he kind of makes an attempt at a little direct passion. He's softly kissing her neck as she creams her hands before bed, and she brushes him off and goes to put her night guard in. Classic don't fuck me sign. But he makes another more direct, kind of more forceful attempt, and she decides to surrender to it. But as we zoom out of the scene, we see her looking totally bored and disconnected, stuck in silence under her partner as he loses himself in what he thinks is shared passion. Ouch. Mega ouch. You been there? I have been there for sure in my sexual career. That soul-sucking, deep emptiness that comes from feeling so far away from your partner, even though you are naked together in the same bed. Or that feeling of sadness that comes from feeling so unseen in that moment, right? How could they not see how disconnected you're feeling right now? The reason I bring up this episode is because it highlights beautifully what many of us try when we are stuck in a sexual stalemate and the things that Cosmomag and other sex advice often pitch, right? Absolutely. Role play, card games, costumes, toys, lingerie, and all the accoutrements can totally support our sex life. But if we are missing the 4 core ingredients, then they're going to fall flat or just miss the mark, just like they did for this couple. At some point, if you are listening to me today, you have tried one or all of these solutions, or you have thought about it at least. Go ahead and reflect right now on which of these things you've tried and maybe how it's worked. I've definitely done toys, lingerie, games, and sometimes they do work, but usually when I've implemented one of the 4 ingredients that we're going to talk about today, and when they fall flat, it's because I have missed the mark on the core foundational pieces, right? I have fallen prey to a great sexpectation that this accoutrement was going to magically solve everything for me, and that's just not how it works, friends. The heavy lifting is not in what we play with during sex, whether it's ourselves, each other, or toys. The magic is in how we play. Before we dive into the 4 ingredients, I want to zoom up, zoom out, and talk a little bit about what I call the naked, sexy, fun times cycle. This is the process or the cycle that we go through, the rhythm of a naked, sexy, fun time. I'm still workshopping this, but it has really helped me to see where I am having breakdowns with my partner in the process, which then helps me to come up with more specific solutions for us, right? Because we're all going to have a breakdown in different parts of the cycle. So I want you to imagine a wheel with me. And at the top of the wheel, we have step 1 of the cycle, which I call initiation. An initiation is the phase where someone makes the invite. Maybe you make the invite to yourself, maybe your partner invites you, or you invite them. In this phase, it has crossed someone's mind that sex could be fun or nice, or someone has been turned on by something and they decide to make a bid for sexual connection. Then we move into step 2. Step 2 is what I call transition, but you could also think of it as foreplay. So in this step, we have said yes to the invitation and we are getting ready for the big show, transitioning from whatever we were doing before the sexy times to doing the sexy times. It's kind of our warm-up phase, transition phase. That's why I like to call it transition. Step 3 is the actual sexy times itself. Important to remember here that sexy times is not defined by a penis going into a vagina. It's not just penetration, but we're actually really in the thick of it now. There's some orgasms happening, some good stuff happening. And step 4 is aftercare or checking in. So when we break it down this way, we can see the different kinds of troubles that we can be having. Many, many, many of the people that I work with after kids are struggling and stuck in phase 1. We rarely, if ever, think about sex. And when our partner even looks at us, we cringe, freak out, or just sigh. Or maybe we're the partner that thinks about sex all the time and we're receiving a shutdown each time. Sometimes our partner makes a move and we're in this internal tug of war where we want to or we feel like we should, and the other part of us feels tired and bloated and overwhelmed and touched out. Some of us feel weird when our partner makes an intimate bid in front of the kids. Some of us feel embarrassed or too shy to make an invitation on our own, even though we want to. And some of us have been turned down so many times, we just don't even know what to try anymore. Early on postpartum, if you're there, we might be worrying about hurting our partner or about getting hurt. We might be unsure if we're ready for sex. So we can see that there are a lot of reasons why we can get stuck at phase 1. Maybe it's been so long we don't even know how to get started. And then we don't even pass go or collect our $200. We go nowhere when we are stuck in the initiation phase. For some of us, the transition phase is the hardest. So we've said yes, our bodies lit up, or because we're intellectually into the idea of sex, we're like, yeah, okay, I'm down. But when we try to land, everything is distracting. The sheets are too cold, the lights are too bright, the music is wrong, your partner's not kissing you the right way, or maybe your brain just can't focus and get in the moment. Maybe performance anxiety is coming up and you're worried if you're gonna touch your partner the right way. Maybe you're in your head and you're worried you're taking too long to warm up, or you feel frustrated because you aren't feeling anything yet. Maybe you're worried the kids are gonna wake up and walk in on you, right? In short, you are either rushing to the next phase, so guilty of this, I'm gonna mega raise my hand for that, or you are struggling to land in the moment and slow down and just be present to transitioning away from where you were to where you are. For others, the hangup is doing the actual deed, right? So like I said before, this is not just intercourse, but phase 3 is like, we're in it. We are past foreplay. Orgasms are happening. We are riding the wave, whether we're doing oral, anal, penetration, you name it, right? Anything in between. In this phase, this is where we can get really tripped up if we are taking too long to come, if we are coming too quickly, if we are not coming at all, if we are not getting hard, if our orgasm doesn't feel as powerful as we want to, or something hurts, or our chronic pain kicks in, or we're afraid to ask for what we need, or we're afraid to get feedback from our partner, or here. This is a lot about physical sensation and communication. So here, we're talking a lot more about physiological processes of arousal in our body, whether we have a penis or a vagina, as well as like communication in that process. And finally, stage 4 is aftercare, which is a lovely word and notion from the BDSM and kink community, but it's a concept that we all need to learn and frankly, we could all use, right? How often do we all just roll over and go to sleep after a romp in the hay or, head to the bathroom and clean up and then go to bed? There's not a lot of nurturing and care, and very rarely is there a debrief where we observe lovingly what worked well and what didn't work well, so that we can learn together with intention and so that we can make things even better next time, so that we can engage in the positive feedback loop, if you remember that from a previous episode. Do you see yourself in one of these 4 phases? And if you had to pick one where you were the most stuck, which is it? For me, it's definitely phases 1 and 2, but I feel all 4 of them. In particular, initiation and foreplay are what I'm working on. I hope you are starting to see here, though, that once you know where your major hurdle is, you can start to implement solutions for that specific hurdle. Because the answer for the person who loves sex but gets stuck in their head in phase 3, sexy time, is very different than the person who can't even get in the mood or get past the gates of phase 1. The solution, the step forward, the path is going to be different for those 2 people. Okay, so we're wanting to get back to our 4 ingredients. If we think about these 4 phases in the naked, sexy, fun time cycle, we can now start to layer on these 4 ingredients that we need for the foundations of our sex life. And a lot of my examples that I just walked through can give you clues to what these are, but let's lay them out and talk about them a little bit here. So ingredient number 1 is the nervous system. Nervous system support, nervous system control. Ingredient number 2 is communication, knowing how to do that well. Ingredient number 3 is your relationship to pleasure. And ingredient number 4 is your mindset overall, your perspective overall about sex, sexuality, pleasure, and rest. Okay? Let's dive in a bit more to what that means. So first up, we have the nervous system. We will do many episodes on this one ingredient, but the long and short is that your nervous system has a mega role to play in your sexual satisfaction on a couple of different levels. Sex is a blend of excitement and anticipation, stimulation, and simultaneously relaxation, presence, and focus. Right away, we can see here where things can get complicated. Let's break it down a bit by the 4 phases of the naked, sexy, fun times cycle, right? So let's see how nervous system plays a role here. So in phase 1, initiation, our general state of stress and stimulation overall plays a role in our desire to accept any sexual stimulation or input. If I am maxed out, totally stressed, and running on empty and or touched out, overstimulated from being with loud children all day, my body is going to offer a hell no when someone decides to offer extra stimulation to this hot mess. So our general stress levels, work stress, life stress, kid stress, as well as our stimulation levels play a big role in phase 1, that initiation phase. And if you add ADHD or any other kind of neurospiciness to the mix, your tripwires are going to be even lower. Or maybe you're the kind of person who gets turned on in a stressful state. Therefore, you might be engaging in arousal, right? On top of all of this, we might have specific core beliefs that hit the fight or flight tripwire for us. So feeling weird about kissing in front of your kids will kick you into fight or flight, for example. Being stuck in a negative feedback loop where bad sex begets more bad sex will kick you into fight or flight. We'll automatically remember that last time was not so great, so this time's not going to be so great. So your body's going to go into protection mode and shut down. Right? So these are all the ways that nervous system gets in the way when we talk about initiation. When we talk about foreplay or transition, phase 2, this looks a lot like getting stuck in our head and not being able to focus in on our body. So we get looped on the laundry or the big project at work or how we're going to get our 6-year-old to stop sucking their thumb. This is where landing in the moment, present and relaxed, is key. And if we're in a state of hypervigilance from trauma or stress, then it's really hard to land in the moment. If we are stressing about our baby pooch, or if we're worried a kid is going to wake up, then that keeps us out of the moment. Also, the nervous system can play a role in our communication piece. So this can keep us in a fawn state where we just go along with things that we aren't really wanting, with an inability to ask for modifications or say no, right? So there's an interweaving between all of our ingredients. If we move into aftercare, sorry, I want to say all those things I just said also apply to actual sexy time. And then if we apply to aftercare, this is where we rush through things, we skip the additional step, or we're stuck in a lot of anxiety about providing feedback to our partner, or we're almost dissociated from what happened and we can't even process what happened. So as we can see, this is like very basic. We'll dive more into nervous system later. The nervous system plays a very key role. And I'm sure you can tell from your own experience as parents, we're all pretty much in a cup overflowing with demands kind of situation. And the biggest myth here is that we need to wait until the conditions are perfect to have sex, instead of knowing that there are tools and techniques we can use to support our nervous system to get into rest and digest and presence, so that we can take advantage of sex as a stress busting and yummy, good hormone boosting tool to help us relieve stress overall in our life. If we get stuck in the chicken or the egg conundrum here, we won't get very far towards our goal of more naked, sexy fun times. But if we trust that some simple nervous system hacks can help us, we can get all the benefits of sex and connection to actually support our nervous system instead of leaving our nervous system as the ingredient that's getting in the way. All right, so that's nervous system. Ingredient number 2 is communication. Communication. I know you've heard it so much. I know you're tired of hearing about it because I know you aren't doing it. You would not be here if you were doing it. You will see as we go along here, again, like I mentioned, how the 4 ingredients are intertwined into this big, messy ball. But communication is a huge part of how we create nervous system safety and how we create connections, how we create a bridge to another person. Learning how to talk about the sex life we want and the things we want to do, learning how to communicate what we need in any given moment, and learning how to receive a request from our partner, learning how to negotiate that request, and learning how to give feedback in the moment are crucial skills. And I didn't list just one skill there, that's several communication skills. Great sex does not happen when we smash our faces and genitals together and hope for the best, friends. Masterful lovers know how to engage our fantasy and ask us what we want in a sexy and consensual way. Okay, this does not have to be robotic consultation. And the more we lean into learning these skills, the better our sex life and really our relationship overall will become. The best way, hands down, to learn these skills is with games. And if this is one of your big hurdles, or you're not sure which one of the 4 ingredients is your biggest hurdle, then I want you to head over to thehappyvaginaproject.com and do the Solve Your Sex Drive quiz. For each core challenge, there's a mini guided experience, about 20 minutes or so, that will help you to learn how to communicate better with your partner, engage your sense of play, and work with your nervous system. I lean on these little games all the time, and they have literally become the Swiss Army knife that I come back to over and over again when I am stuck. And you'll hear me reference them a lot in future episodes. Okay, so we've got nervous system, we've got communication. Ingredient number 3 is your relationship to pleasure. Once again, so much juicy stuff to unpack here, and we'll just skim the surface. But this one is very much tied to nervous system as well. Ding dong. This is where we explore what pleasure even means to us and how much of it we feel we deserve, as well as what value we place on sexual pleasure and sexual connection in our relationship and even just with ourselves. There are 4 different kinds of pleasure that we can experience in life: emotional, spiritual, sexual and physical. And in our capitalist, patriarchal society, where we are all supposed to be busy, useful little worker bees here to serve the man, we learn a few things about pleasure. We learn that pleasure is earned after hard work. We learn that pleasure, especially sexual pleasure, but all pleasure really, is dirty, shameful, bad. We learn that rest is lazy and indulgent. We are not taught that the body was made for pleasure, not just for making babies. And we, as women, trans folks, queer folks, femmes in particular, have learned that pleasure is not often safe, either through lived experience, the stories we hear, et cetera, et cetera. People with penises can learn that pleasure is for them to take, but also maybe feeling shame about the legacy of male violence and unsure of how to process their desires without harming others. There can be all kinds of complex feelings here, right? We often think of desire as secret, indulgent, or demanding. Folks living with disability are told they don't have a sexuality at all, right? That they're not supposed to be sexual. They're supposed to be in a perpetually childlike state. I could go on. The point here is that these messages, and whatever you have taken from your culture and your spirituality and your lived experience about pleasure and rest and relaxation, create a relationship for you between yourself and pleasure. Some people and cultures live very openly and in the sensuous and sensual realm. They taste and smell and touch and listen to life with open vigor. And other cultures and individuals view this kind of sensuality as vulgar almost, right? So there are layers here. And then we can add layers like what are our associations between parenthood and sexuality? Can we be a mother and a sexual creature? Can we be a parent, a father, and a sexual creature? Are those two things allowed to exist in the same person? In what ways right now do you shrink back from truly living from your senses? Do you opt for that afternoon snooze on Sunday, or do you power through the mountain of chores and cleaning that you have? I've been learning that one the hard way. When you take that weekend away, how much guilt about taking that weekend away is tainting your ability to relax and enjoy the benefits of your weekend away? This is also about your nervous system's ability to tolerate and allow pleasure. And the easiest way to illustrate this point is when I go back to my early 20s, when I thought I couldn't orgasm, story for another day. Whenever I would get close to it, it would feel like too much goodness. And my whole body would just shut down. It was like, whoa, that amount of good feels bad. I could not process that amount of stimulation and sensation when it was happening to my body. And this can happen to people for all kinds of reasons, from trauma to just our physical neurology. But your physical ability to process pleasures of sensation can also limit your ceiling of that ability. Some people touch the universe when they owe, and it's because their nervous system can support it. Yours can too, if we teach it to. I always say that sex has two key elements, and they are not the P in the V. They are pleasure and vulnerability. Pleasure is central to sex, joy, fun, laughter, sensations. Sex is supposed to feel good. And if we aren't processing our relationship to pleasure, then we are sure to come up against some blocks to our bliss in the process. The last ingredient is our overall mindset about sex, or what I call great sexpectations. And this has to do with everything we think about sex and everything we have learned about sex. This has to do with the perspectives that you have about sex and the myths that might be holding you back. And you might have new myths since becoming a parent. So this would be things like feeling like you are supposed to be a 5-star sex god without having ever cracked a book about sex. This would be things like expecting your male partner to initiate or to lead all sex because men are supposed to take and women are supposed to surrender and receive. This can look like feeling like your partner should be able to magically read your mind without you ever communicating what you need. So they just have magic hands and magic fingers, or feeling like you have to look a certain way, weigh a certain amount, be a certain body kind to be the kind of person who can have a good sex life. The amount of times I hear people say, when I lose those 10 pounds, I'll finally have the sex life I want. Carrying shame about sex or feeling weird about having sex as an older person as we age. I heard a great stat the other day that said that some of the most erotic sex actually happens in older age. We are not at our peak in our 20s, like over 40, because we're able to adopt more of the 4 ingredients that we're talking about today: communication, nervous system support, relationship, and mindset. We're able to take a growth mindset to sex, learn from our failures, and grow and play with it. Other examples are things like feeling like you're pressured to have sex, or like you do it just to please your partner. Feeling like sex is only sex if a penis went inside of a vagina. That's a big one. Feeling like sex is only over when a penis ejaculates, or feeling like the pleasure should be all his. Again, a lot goes into this, and these are just some examples from the tip of the iceberg. But when we start to break down what we learned about sex and how we feel about sex and sexuality, we can start to find some blocks here for sure. When we have the right mindset and perspective about sex, the more we can open up to new possibilities, new experiences, and the more we can actually roll with the punches when it comes to an evolving life, right? So that was a lot to incorporate today. To recap, our 4 ingredients are the nervous system, communication, our relationship to pleasure and capacity for pleasure, and our mindset about sex. And if we go back to our story about the couple in the beginning from that episode of Easy, there was an attempt at communication that got them as far as trying some new things, but they skipped the nervous system support and never got past feeling totally awkward and landing fully in the moment, present and relaxed with each other. If they had done that, they could have had some fun with their costumes. They could have had some fun with those positions, with those toys. Instead, they went to this go-to move and just stayed in this awkward moment, right? If he had shared feedback about what was happening for him, if she had shared feedback, if they had tuned into each other's nervous systems and their energy and made adjustments with confidence, they might have landed in a different place. And if they overall had a different relationship to pleasure, things also could have been different. What else might have been possible if their role play experiment had been approached as actually an experiment, meaning that they expected failure but were set up to learn from it instead of pinning all their hopes on a plumber's outfit and a dirty maid costume to solve everything? They didn't go into it with strong communication. They didn't go into it with strong nervous system tools, and they didn't go into it with the right mindset. The sex toys don't run magic if we haven't created safety and give good feedback. The lingerie or costume doesn't create magic if we aren't ready to fail today so we can do better tomorrow. I hope this is starting to click and you're starting to see how this all comes together. The bottom line, friends, is that sex is a social skill. It is relational and it is about relationship. And if we want that exchange of energy, that moment in time to feel connected and full of spark, we need to find ways to support ourselves to land fully present in that moment in time and connect to the spark in us and in our partner. You got this. I hope there was something here for you. Let me know what you heard in the comments or in the DMs on Instagram. I look forward to diving more into these ingredients with you in the future episodes and sharing some practical tools with you to start to get out of your sexual stalemate or enhance the sex that we're having. Catch you next time.
This is the part where we do the end bit, right? Okay, friends, let's take a mindfulness minute here. One big deep breath in through the nose and one big deep full body sigh out the mouth. Voila. Your nervous system says merci. Thanks so much for being here today. I hope your head and your heart have something new to consider. No husbands were harmed in the making of this podcast, and a big thank you to my husband for his sound help and original music compositions. Love you, babe. You can catch us on Instagram at The Happy Bee Project for tools, tips, and anecdotes. You can join the newsletter for weekly-ish dispatches from my bedroom and head to thehappyvaginaproject.com to learn how you can work with me. Catch you next time.